Francisco Lindor is top five right now in Major League Baseball when it comes to fWAR. He is back to playing like the best shortstop in baseball. On the show today, I'm going to talk about Lindor's bounce back season. And we also have another loss to discuss as the Mets were swept by the New York Yankees to close out this season's Subway Series with an even split. Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor, where I just wrote an article about Francisco Lindor that we're going to talk about in the latter half of the show today. But I want to start off talking about this game. The Mets get swept by the Yankees in this Subway Series. Very similar when it comes to the offensive production we saw. 2 runs scored in each of these games. The Mets battled, but ultimately came up short both times. This is a team that desperately needs this off day on Wednesday. Unfortunately, though, gives the Braves an opportunity to get within 2 games. Right now, because the Braves are playing the Pirates and they just seem to beat every team not named the Mets this season, they have picked up some games now and they will play the Pirates again on Wednesday. Luckily, they're off on Thursday, so the Mets can get that half game back, assuming the Braves do win when they play the Rockies for the beginning of their 4-game set that will be played this weekend at Citi Field. But look, this is, again, not a series that I point to and say, wow, there's just a ton to be concerned about with this Mets team. I'm not there. But it's just a frustrating existence as a Mets fan right now because here's this roster that is putting together in a vacuum a regular season that's been better than anything we've really seen since 2006. And you could probably start to dissect whether it is a better regular season than that one. That's how good this Mets team has been. Yet, with that said, because you have a team in the Braves that is just as good, this might be a wild card team. So it's just kind of a crazy place the Mets are in at the moment. And you don't want to go in and face your crosstown rival and lose both games, although this did make this season series a split from the Mets and the Yankees. It is a frustrating loss. And I think the one thing you can continue to point to is the bullpen. And it does show up again in this game as Joel Rodriguez gives up the runs that prove to be the difference. But before that, Taijuan Walker was solid. The Mets did push Jacob deGrom back. He'll start the game on Thursday. So next time out, you get a deGrom day after the off day. Walker was good, though. I mean, through the first 3 innings, he was solid. The pitch count was low. He was cruising through the 4th at first, gets a big double play ball after giving up a leadoff single. Andrew Benintendi, by the way, who did get that leadoff hit in the 4th, and also got an RBI hit later in the 7th that proved to be the difference in the game. He just had a great series for the Yankees, and he had been struggling prior to this series. So interesting to see the fact that their big trade deadline acquisition, or one of them, really starting to play out. Frankie Montes, the other one, started against the Mets tonight and fared pretty well himself. But Aaron Judge hits a home run against Taijuan in the 4th, and it seemed to kind of set him off. At the time, I'm not sure if Taijuan wanted a different pitch. He ultimately goes with the sinker that he just didn't get in enough, and it just ends up on a tee for Judge. It was not a terribly pitched ball when it came to the location. It was in that bottom corner of the strike zone, the inside corner. But with Aaron Judge, you need to throw a pitch that's a little bit outside of the zone and hope he gets himself out. You don't want to give him a pitch that he can get a barrel on. And he obviously did. That's his 48th of the season. There's no shame in giving up a home run to Aaron Judge. But when he did give up the home run, I don't know if Taijuan was upset with himself or upset with the pitch call, but he certainly kind of let out a little bit of a scream towards Tomas Nido's direction. I'm not sure if there was anything there. But then it seemed to really throw him off. Gives up a hit to Gleyber Torres. Actually wanted Rizzo before that. Then the Torres walks Josh Donaldson to load the bases, and then walks in a run. Was lucky that he got out of that inning without giving up more damage, and that ended up being all that he did allow for the day. Goes 5 innings, 4 hits allowed, walked 2, 3 strikeouts, those 2 runs through 81 pitches, so they maybe eased him back a little bit. Didn't force the action too much on him. And the Mets were able to get back into this game in the 5th inning. They got on the board. Didn't look like they were going to, honestly. Mark Cannon doubles. Brett Beatty gets on via catcher's interference. So there's 2 runners on. Tomas Nido laid down 1 of 2 sac bunts he had in this game. He's been amazing with that this year. So that put 2 runners in scoring position. But when Brandon Nimmo lined out to DJ LeMahieu, you were sitting at that point where it seemed like the Mets were going to come up short again. And then Starlin Marte does get the clutch hit. Unfortunately, Brett Beatty didn't get a great jump on it. Ends up getting thrown out at the plate. 2-1 Mets. Taiwan gets you through the bottom half, and the Mets then tied it up in the sixth inning. Jeff McNeil with an RBI double that scored Pete Alonso. So that was good. They go to Seth Lugo from there. Lugo got them through the sixth, but in the seventh inning, they go back to Joely. And here's the problem. It continues to be an issue, the Mets bullpen. Billy Epler did not do enough at the trade deadline. We talked about it at length by now. At the deadline, I touched on it. I went a little bit harder in on it last week, and it just continues to be an issue. They don't have a left-handed reliever that you trust, and it gets to the point where you almost want to just take Joely out of the equation because he gets put in these spots in big situations. I don't know why they decided to go to him there. I don't know if they're really fearing Benintendi, but if that's the case, he was up fourth in the inning, and by the time he came up, there was 2 runners on. Then he gives up a hit to Benintendi that ends up giving the Yankees what ended up being the game-winning run. They get another run after that as well. At this point, that was when Adam Ottavino came into the game, another inherited runner that he allows that they're being so good, stranding inherited runners across a large stretch of the season. And ultimately, the Mets lose 4-2. They had their opportunities beyond that to get back in it in the eighth inning. They get 2 runners on, but Daniel Vogelback ends up hitting into a double play. And that kind of was all she wrote for the Mets in the ninth. They did get Tyler Naquin on. He drew a walk. Nimmo got a hit. You had Starlin Marte draw a walk too, but Francisco Lindor flew out to end the game. And that was just some missed opportunities for the Mets. I don't look at this as a big referendum on their offense. They did go 2 for 13 with runners in scoring position, but it's going to happen. Frankie Montes is a good pitcher. That guy Schmidt that came out, was it Calvin Schmidt? Clark Schmidt. He almost closed the game for the Yankees. He was great. Almost got the final, what was it, 10 outs. The last one, ultimately, they had to go to Wandy Peralta to get the job done against Lindor, flip him over to the right side. It's been better against a lefty this year, or as a lefty this year than as a righty. And the Mets end up losing both. So here they are. They're 79-46. I still think this is a great baseball team. But the Braves are putting pressure on the Mets, and they're going to have a big series this weekend if they want to hold them off. It's getting to the point where you're seeing a 4-game set against the Rockies, and you think, got to take all 4 because the Braves just keep on winning. Luckily, they're going to play the Cardinals this weekend, so maybe that's an opportunity for the Mets to gain some games back in this division. But we'll be talking about all that stuff more on tomorrow's show, doing a series preview and all that good stuff. What I want to do for the rest of the show today is focus in on the best player on the Mets this year, and that is, of course, Francisco Lindor. But before we get to that, if you're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks, a few can become a few too many. As the evening comes to an end, people start to head out. You think of calling for a ride, but then you're like, nah, you know what? I live close enough. I can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds that you get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst thing that could happen? Your insurance goes up a little bit. Maybe you lose your license, or you could lose your job, or you could total your car, or maybe worst of all, you could kill somebody. It's not worth it to drink and drive. Everyone knows about the risks, but in those moments, we sometimes make bad decisions, and the results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again, play it safe, plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. So today I've been doing a deep dive on Francisco Lindor for Just Baseball in an article that I'm titling Francisco Lindor has been the Mets' best player this season because frankly he has been. I think Pete Alonso is going to garner more MVP attention and rightfully so. He's put up the gaudy home run and RBI numbers. But if we're talking about the complete player and what they bring to the table, because Lindor is playing premium defense at the shortstop position, he's been the best player on the Mets this season. And this is why you trade for him. I know Andres Gimenez has been great in Cleveland, and it's good to see a trade works out win-win. You don't want to root against a former Mets prospect. Jimenez was someone I was really high on. Loved what he did for them in the 2020 season. It hurt to see him go, but you make that trade because you're getting a guy that since 2015 when he debuted, he's been the best shortstop in baseball when it came to fWAR, and that is why he got paid the contract, because there was a statistical argument that this guy was the best all-around shortstop in baseball throughout his entire career before he put on a Mets jersey. Those guys get paid top dollar. Tatis just got a $340 million contract at the time. Lindor got 341. Now, Tatis is suspended. He was hurt due to a motorcycle accident. And that's the first thing I want to talk about with Lindor. The durability is something that we don't mention nearly enough with Francisco Lindor. Last season, that was the first time when he had that oblique injury that he had been hurt his entire career. This year, the one injury he had, he slams a door on his finger in his hotel room and he's back out there the following day. He only missed one game all season. But right now, he's currently leading all shortstops in baseball when it comes to fWAR at 5.5. That adds to his career total. So now his career fWAR is at 40.7. You're talking about a guy that's on a Hall of Fame trajectory that's going to be in a Mets uniform for the next decade. That's exciting. And I know that there was a lot of concern at the last season, and that's where I want to start here. It's a definite bounce back season for Lindor after he hit 230 with a 322 on base percentage and a 412 slugging percentage last year. His WRC plus was 103. That again measures hitters based on a league average of 100. So he was only slightly better than a league average hitter last season. This year, he's hitting 273, and this is stats pulled prior to the game today, I should note. And he ended up going, I think, 0 for 3 with 2 walks. But 273 hitter, so he's raised that average about 40 points from last season. The on-base percentage over 20 points higher at 346. The slugging percentage at 457, over 40 points higher. The WRC plus is at 130. So 30% better than your league average hitter, and right on line with what he did in 2018, the best season of his career, where he hit 277, a 352 on base, and a 519 slugging with 38 home runs and a 132 WRC plus. So very similar stats when it comes to the WRC plus as that season. The home runs haven't quite been at that same level, but you look at what he did last year, and Lindor's already passed pretty much every single benchmark he had set in the Mets uniform. More home runs this season, more runs scored, more RBIs, more stolen bases, got 21 bombs, 80 runs scored, 84 RBIs, 13 steals, and he's playing excellent defense at shortstop once again. He's ranking in the 97th percentile among fielders. That's in the same range that Jeff McNeil is at right now, with an identical 9 outs above average. McNeil, 7 outs above average at second, 2 in left field for that composite score of 9. Obviously, Lindor is playing shortstop every day, 9 outs above average for him. So the defense has been great. He's been clutch in RBI spots as well. You look at what Fangraphs deems as high leverage situations this season, and Lindor's hitting 368 in those spots with a 415 on base percentage and a 632 slugging percentage, a 187 WRC plus, 87% better than your league average hitter in a high leverage spot. You look at his RBIs of 84, that's the third most in the National League behind Pete Alonso and Paul Goldschmidt. And he's 10 away from a career high. He's actually within 10. His career high was 92. That was back in that 2018 season I was talking about, where he put up a 7.8 fWAR. This year at 5.5, he's getting into that territory where this is likely going to end up being the second best season of his career behind that 2018 campaign. And as already mentioned, fifth best in baseball when it comes to fWAR right now, behind Aaron Judge, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, and Manny Machado, which should make him factor into the MVP conversation, even though if you look at the odds right now, it's pretty much off the board. Like, he's not going to get too many votes because the offensive numbers aren't quite where you'd want them to be. And I think voters always kind of tend to skew offense. So a guy like Paul Goldschmidt, Austin Riley, Nolan Arenado, Pete Alonso, Freddie Freeman, even a Mookie Betts, they're probably going to get a little more attention than Lindor will. Also considering where Lindor finished when it came to all-star voting, I don't know if he's getting the most recognition anymore for whatever it's worth. So I don't really think he factors into the MVP conversation too much at all. I imagine he'll get some votes. There's probably going to be some New York writers who have been watching him play every day that say, you know what, he deserves it. And they're going to look at the statistical argument when you look at wins above replacement and say, you know what, here's a guy on a first place team that deserves it. But what he has done this season has been remarkable. The way he's changed the narrative. When the Mets traded for him, what was the first thing out of my mouth that I said? I remember it vividly. I was talking about what he could mean to the Mets, and I said, look, this is the type of guy that can win an MVP for you. They can carry your team, could be the best player on a first place team. And that's what he's done this season. He has been the best player on a first place team. He's been out there every single day. You don't have to worry about your defense at shortstop when you have Lindor out there. And that's a trickle down effect that helps your pitching staff. That's why Trevor Williams is pitching to a sub 3 ERA this season. It's not to take anything away from him because he's been great. He's been attacking hitters, but it's because he has Lindor behind him at shortstop that makes him better. It's why Marcus Stroman, I don't want to point to all of his struggles this year being because he doesn't have Lindor behind him, but it's not entirely shocking that he had such a good season with Lindor playing defense behind him. He just makes your baseball team better. And he's also red hot right now. That's what I want to talk about here, how hot he has been since July and also since the All-Star break and where he could finish this season when it comes to his numbers, because we're looking at a guy that does have a chance if he stays on this hot streak to maybe make this the best season of his career. But we're going to get to that in a minute. First, betonline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs, where you can find all your favorite sports and events at the number one online source for odds, lines, and games. You can find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting to scores and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Francisco Lindor was snubbed from the All-Star team this season. It would have been his fifth selection. And maybe he took that a little bit personally, because since the All-Star break, where he had to watch at home as Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil played in the game, Starling Marte and Edwin Diaz were both there, he has gone on to hit 350 with a 410 on base percentage, 533 slugging percentage, 5 home runs, 18 RBIs, and he has a 170 WRC plus. Now, Lindor is not only leading the league when it comes to his fWAR since the All-Star break at 2.1, but he's also second in the National League when it comes to runs scored to Mookie Betts with 26. You look back even further, this has actually been going on since July, where Lindor is hitting 323 since the calendar turned, with a 389 on base and a 519 slugging percentage over his last 48 games. This, of course, does not include the game tonight, where, again, I think he went over 3 with the 2 walks, but Lindor continues to give great at bats. He gets deep into counts, and he finds a way to get on base, and he's doing a lot of hitting recently. And I think the thing that I looked at when I was diving deep into his numbers, and we could talk about the advanced metrics and how hard he hits the ball and all that stuff, but to me, with Lindor, it's about the approach. It's about the stuff that doesn't always necessarily come up when you just straight dive into the stats with Lindor. Just the fact that he's out there every single day, the durability, the leadership, the defense, the at bats that he gives, the presence that he has in the lineup in the 3 hole, I think has been so critical. And then, even though he's been up and down, like if you look at his month to month from the season, he had March, April, May where he was pretty solid. May was a little bit of a downturn, I guess, when it comes to hitting for average, but he drove in a ton of runs, and he actually won the Player of the Week at the end of May. Then he had his struggles in June. And then from July on, as I said, he's been pretty hot. But the thing that's remarkable looking over his season, every single month, you know what he gives you? 4 home runs, 14 RBIs, like clockwork. Every single month this season, he has reached at least those marks. 4 home runs, times that by 6 months of a baseball season. What does that give you? 24 home runs. Right on line to do that. Actually, on line to do a little bit more. RBIs, 14 a month. Times that by 6. Easy math. 84 RBIs. If you were to tell me for the next 9 years, Lindor would average 24 home runs, 84 RBIs, I would sign up for that in a heartbeat. I know there's Mets fans that are saying, well, he's getting paid 34 point, whatever about the money. Okay, don't worry about that. What I'm worried about is the fact that you're getting a premier defender at the toughest position who's actually providing you something offensively as well, who's able to hit 25 bombs for you and drive in 80. That's really solid for a Gold Glove shortstop. You know that we watched for years Andrelton Simmons give the Rays a lot less than that, and the Angels following that. So that's what he can bring. Compared to a Ray Ordonez. I mean, if you want to say Ray Ordonez is the best defensive shortstop in Mets history over a Lindor, I'm not going to blame you. I was pretty young, and I still remember some of his flashy plays and how solid he was up the middle. But Ray Ordonez was giving you nothing offensively, and Lindor is certainly much better than that. If you were to pace out his numbers for the season, Lindor is on pace to hit 27 home runs, drive in 110 with 105 runs scored, and his fWAR, he's on pace for a 7-win season. It'd be the second 7-win season of his career. As I said, 2018, 7.8, almost an 8-win season. It's getting close again for him to potentially have the career year this season if he stays hot the way he has been over the final 6 or 7 weeks here. Who knows what those numbers can look like? Maybe he gets over 30 bombs. Maybe he hits 9 more. It will be asking a lot. The most he's hit in a month this year is 5. So suddenly to hit 9 in the final month and change would be going on a pretty big heater, but you never know. He could have a multi-home run game to close out this month or hit a couple more. Let's just say he gets up to 24 home runs, and then would it be that shocking for him to hit 6 bombs in September and get to 30? Maybe he is able to reach that 110 RBI mark or even a little bit beyond that. Maybe he scores 110 runs. And if he can get that fWAR in closer to 8, it is a possibility. I mean, we're talking about a 48 game sample, whereas fWAR was 2.1. If he's a little bit better in what's now a 30, was it 38 games left, something like that, 37. I don't know if he quite gets to an 8 fWAR. That's asking a lot for him to add an extra 2.5 wins. But could he add 2 more wins to that and be comfortably in the sevens? I think he could. And considering where this team is going, just huge to have that level of production. I think the biggest thing to look at when it comes to Francisco Lindor's season, the Mets have been in first place since April 12th. He's been playing every day, as has Pete Alonso. The two of them, their consistent presence in the lineup, it says a lot for where the Mets are. And when you kind of project forward, having this guy locked up for 9 more years, it's a really good thing for the Mets to have because it's solidifying a position that's very hard to lock down. And you have solidified it again with the guy that since 2015, over an 8-year span, based on the metric that tells us how good players are at baseball. That's what fWAR is. It is the simplest encapsulation of how valuable is this guy. This year, fWAR tells us that Aaron Judge is the most valuable player because, of course, he is. Francisco Lindor, since 2015, has been the best shortstop in baseball. This year, he is once again the best shortstop in baseball. The best shortstop in baseball rightfully gets paid. On the show tomorrow, I will preview the upcoming series against the Colorado Rockies, but I'm also writing more for Just Baseball. I'm going to be doing a deep dive into the disciplined approach of this Mets offense. There's some stats that I've already been looking into that might blow you away a bit when it comes to some of the Mets' top hitters and how patient and disciplined they are at the plate, how good their pitch recognition, their eyes are, and why that has led to so much success with the Mets team this year. So I'm going to do a deep dive on that tomorrow. Make sure you follow, rate, and review so you get that show. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. Locked On MLB is where you want to go to stay up to date with everything going on in Major League Baseball. You'll follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.